Welcome to the Gold Newsletter Podcast, your bank of knowledge of investments, economics, and geopolitics. Go to goldnewsletter.com for our publications and archives to increase your wealth monetarily and educationally.
Hello, folks. This is Fergus Hodgson with the Gold Newsletter Podcast. I'm super excited to be back for 2018. I'm in Guatemala, and I have a distinct show prepared. While I was in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago, I met a professor called Bill Reese, and we took a class on investments there, and I was just very impressed by his presentation, but also I thought he would be an ideal person to explain to listeners the different ways to educate oneself in finance. And let me just read, let's say first, Bill, thanks so much for giving your time. I know you're in high demand, so that's greatly appreciated.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here. I appreciate you asking me.
Right, and he has a very lengthy bio. I mean, he has an impressive history. I should note that he has a PhD in finance from the University of Arizona, and he's particularly useful because he did his PhD later in life. He worked in banking and insurance for a decade prior to starting his PhD. So he has experience in both sides, in the private sector and working, well, I guess at the university is the private sector too, but in the academic life and in industry. And he's also been published very widely, the Journal of Finance, Journal of Financial Economics, all over the place. So he lives in Mandeville, just north of New Orleans. One way to start the discussion, I thought, was just, the story that there's such I'm not sure whether crisis is the appropriate word, but there is a grave problem of indebtedness among young people. And now student loans, for example, are roughly almost twice the magnitude of credit card debt. And there are different statistics you can look to, but around $30,000 seems to be the average for people graduating university in student debt, or at least the ones who hold a loan. Many students do not have loans. Do you want to maybe make a comment as to why there is so much indebtedness and why this is a change from the past, or whether this is a healthy development that maybe just the university is worth that investment?
Sure. Well, when I graduated from college, which was as an undergraduate, was 1978. My wife graduated as an undergraduate 1 year ahead of me in 77, and then she went to nursing school for 2 years. We got married in 79. I mention this because while our indebtedness was not, getting out of college was not $30,000, I don't think. On an inflation-adjusted basis, I'm confident it was more than that.
Okay.
It took us 16 years to pay off our college debt, and for most of that time, our monthly payments on our college debt was more than what our rent payments were or our mortgage payments were. And I will tell you right now that is the best investment I ever made.
Okay.
Statistics will tell you that the best investment anyone can ever make is an investment in themselves. And whether it be starting up a business or going to school or just anything along that line, those are the best investments you can make. So I would not say that it is a bad thing that people are taking on debt to better themselves, to increase their education. It's certainly been done for a long time. I think the numbers are getting greater now, I think, because more and more people are going to college. And as more and more people go to college, that means it's less of just the wealthy families able to send their kids to college. I think more middle-class families are understanding the importance of sending their kids to college. And as a result, they can't necessarily pay for the schooling out of their current savings and income. So the only alternative, unless they're able to get scholarship money, is to go into debt. And I would maintain that for a 4-year college degree, that's great. By the way, I'll also mention I heard the chairman of the Federal Reserve say something on this not too long ago on CNBC, where he said that the debt that is a problem is those who are going into debt to go to a trade school or to go to junior college, that those are the folks who are getting debt that they're having difficulty paying off. the greatest quantity of debt, and what really kind of skews the numbers, would be people that are taking on debt to go to medical school, and where few of us would argue that that is a good investment. People come out of medical school typically owing $100,000, $150,000, $200,000, which most of us would like to be in that situation, to have the kind of income they have and are able to pay it off. But when you talk about an average being $30,000, as you know from taking statistics, averages can be highly skewed with those at the top end.
Yeah, the median is lower than that. And one thing you note about
Sure.
the different, I mean, of course we could go down to majors, but I did find some interesting data on public versus private and 2-year versus 4-year. And as you maybe alluded to, the worst default rates are in the 2-year public programs, perhaps because they're less selective. So the actual selectivity of colleges is a healthy thing, that they're saying that if you cannot get through, you're not going to graduate, or you're not going to find a career in that field, then we probably should not take you in. So it's about roughly twice the default rate at these short 2-year colleges, about 18%.
Like any investment, you look at what is it costing you, and you look at what is the possible return. And while I would encourage people to go to a 2-year college, if they're not able to go to a 4-year college, you certainly have to realize the return in terms of the type of job you're going to get and the income you're going to get is not going to be the same. So if person A takes on $20,000 of debt to go to a 2-year college, person B takes on the same $20,000 of debt but goes to a 4-year college, person B is more likely to pay that off more easily because they're probably going to get a better job that pays a higher income, for the same reason that someone who goes to medical school is typically not going to have a problem paying off their debts.
When it comes to majors, you can actually major in finance or do a concentration in finance in many commerce or business administration programs. Do you recommend that as a path to a career, as opposed to, say, just studying more liberal arts in economics or mathematics, or something that is more general?
Well, that's a really good question. I think, first of all, the issue is, what is it that you want to do in life? And certainly you want to gear yourself towards what you want to do. I sometimes meet with prospective undergraduate students who are asking me about getting a business education, and then are talking about going and getting an MBA. And I will oftentimes encourage them that if you are confident that you are going to get an MBA, a master's degree in business administration, it is somewhat redundant to also get an undergraduate degree in business. And you would probably be better served to get your undergraduate degree in something like chemistry or engineering or architecture, or something a little bit more specific. Then you can get the MBA, and you can say, oh, now I've really got two skills, two abilities, two talents, where I know how to apply business to something I learned as an undergraduate. The students who I teach in our MBA programs who have an undergraduate degree in a hard science, such as biology, chemistry, physics, something like that, those are the students who, and particularly the engineers, those are the students who really have skills at that point in time, as opposed to someone who got an undergraduate degree in business and a master's degree in business, and they understand business, but and that's great, but they don't have a particular sub-discipline in which to apply that business to.
Right. That reminds me, I've done a lot of journalism in my life, and many people, when I was younger and asking about the field, would say, do not study journalism. That's crazy. Study something that's useful, like finance or one of the industries, and then you would learn the journalism on the go, and you would at least have that field. You'd have some specialty to bring to the table, or accounting, whatever it may be. Now, one challenge that I've wrestled with over the years, and right as you know, I'm a little bit older. I'm 34 years old, and I'm doing a Master of Finance right now, and I'm going to a private.
From my point of view, 34-year-olds is not a little bit older. I just want you to know that. Okay.
Okay,
from why I said 34 years old is a little bit younger, but go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So, but I'm surprised now that I'm coming back as to how young a lot of the graduate students are. I would have thought they would have gone out into the world and done more time in the field, but a lot of them just continue right on after just 1 year, or not even 1 year. They'll just go straight to graduate school. But the predicament is just this challenge of the value of formal education versus experience. And one man who will be probably familiar to a lot of listeners is Doug Casey. He wrote International Man, Crisis Investing, a lot of best-selling books back in the 80s and 90s, and he's writing fiction these days. But he always recommended against such formal education and more in the field. How much tension is there between that decision between, say, taking more work experience and then going back? You've done both, so how much value did you get from each side?
Well, let me mention that you are getting a master's degree in finance, and that is typically done by most folks immediately after their 4 years of college as being an extension on an undergraduate business degree. The master's degree of finance is typically a more advanced mathematically, more advanced in terms of the computation as well. So that is different from, say, getting an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration. The typical student that we have for an MBA is probably 28, 29, 30 years old, and you as a 34-year-old would not have felt out of place at all in a full-time MBA program. In fact, it's very rare that we have someone come into an MBA program right out of school as an undergraduate. However, a Master of Finance degree is thought of as just one more year of getting that additional stuff that you got as an undergraduate. In fact, almost all of our Master of Finance students had undergraduate degrees in business. So as what I was mentioning before about getting a degree in something other than business, that would apply to an MBA, but it would not apply to a Master's in Finance. Master's in Finance, I know at least at Tulane and at most schools, you're not generally accepted into that program unless your undergraduate degree was in business and you have had courses in statistics and accounting and things along those lines. But getting back to your question about experience in the real world versus in academics, ultimately you have to have both, because there are things in academics that you can't learn in the real world, and there's things there's things in the real world that you can't learn in academics, but certainly academics, the purpose is to prepare you for the real world, to give you theoretical underpinnings to be able to understand the way things should be, so that when you see that things are not always the way they should be, you can then ask the question, why aren't they not the way they should be? If I took an academic course on the study of physics, I would understand that gravity pulls everything down towards the ground uniformly. Then I would get out in the real world and I would say, wait a second, there's something wrong here. There are airplanes that are flying. That's against gravity. If I drop a bowling ball and I drop a piece of paper from a building, the paper kind of floats down and the bowling ball goes straight down. That's different from what I learned. And if you go straight into the real world and you see those differences, then you don't understand why they initially should be the same and why they are different. But if you went first and took a physics class and understood why things as the normal process fall uniformly to the ground, then you can say, okay, why are they different? Oh, I understand the airplane has got, the wind resistance on the wings, and we've got, the ball and the piece of paper are come down differently because also of air resistance. And I think that applies very well in business in terms of understanding the difference between the way things should be, which we learn in academics, and then seeing, okay, here's the way things are, but now I know why they are differently, and I can apply that a little bit better.
Let's take a quick break to take care of business.
Do you want to rub elbows with the best minds in the precious metals and mining industry? You can on the Money, Metals, and Mining Cruise from May 28th to June 7th, 2018. Explore the jewels of the Mediterranean while discovering the latest strategies to successfully invest in precious metals and mining stocks. It's a perfect blend of adventure, learning, and luxurious leisure aboard the Crystal Serenity, always a popular destination. Cabins will sell out fast. Call cruise experts at 800-797-9519 to learn more, or visit our website, goldnewsletter.com/cruise.
One of the challenges people face too, I mean, this is the problem with young people, that you said we need to know what we want to do, and often we don't know, right? So we're making questions
Absolutely
before we know. So, I mean, how does one make a decision, for example, to choose between the PhD or the more theoretical side, or to go and work? I mean, one of the challenges which I mentioned to you, and I'm sure it's the same for many listeners, is that we are outside the industry. Right, we grow up, we go to school, we might go, do an undergraduate degree, and we think, okay, we like finance, so we might be interested in that. But this is such a diverse field of so many services. So how does one find his way in that world?
Well, I think two ways you can do that is through reading and through talking with other people. For example, before I made the decision at age 38 to go back and get a PhD in finance, and this was before the internet, so I couldn't just look it up everywhere. I spent time calling finance professors, some that I knew, some that I didn't know, and asking what they thought about the career, why they went into it, how they liked it, and so forth. And I just went into some different schools, drove over there, walked into the finance department and saw and knocked on doors to be able to ask people questions about it, which was kind of unusual, I guess, but it was very helpful for me to talk to these people and get an idea, people who were in the field. Then I went also and checked out as many books as I could at the library on the field. Now it's certainly a whole lot easier. You can go on the internet and you can read all about it. But nobody knows for sure what is going to be the best career path for them. But the best we can do is try to keep ourselves as informed as possible. Talk to people who have done it, people who've been there, and say, does this sound like the sort of thing that I would be good at and that I would like? You need a mixture of the two. It's great to like something, but if you're no good at it, that's not where you want to go. It's great to be good at something, but if you don't like it, that's probably not the way to go either.
One interesting point, because I've obviously been going through this process of researching the options, and like you, I mentioned, I've visited universities in person. I've spoken with lots of professors about the options, and I'm going through that process. And an interesting insight, which people might want to consider if you're looking to study do a PhD in economics or in finance, it appears as though the starting salaries are basically twice the rate for finance as they are for economics, which took me by surprise. How accurate is that insight? Or I've seen it referenced a few places online. Is that correct? And do you want to comment on why it's so different, considering that finance is a field of economics?
Yeah, it is higher. I don't know. Twice sounds a little bit more than what I would expect. I would have thought maybe it was 30, 40, 50% higher. But, there's no doubt starting salaries in finance is higher than the starting salaries in economics. I would say more than anything else, it's because people who come out of school with a PhD in finance have other options other than to be a college professor in hedge funds, investment management funds, and so forth. Your major investment banks, they hire PhDs in finance. There is something, particularly if you are really strong quantitatively, and in terms of your abilities to be able to work with computing power. So, whereas if you get with a degree in economics, there are some opportunities to work outside of academics, which is why economics professors earn more than, say, a history professor does, but probably not as many opportunities as with finance. So I think it's in every field, it's a matter of the starting salaries for the PhDs, or do you have other options other than a career in academics.
Right, and one of my uncles, I should note, is a professor of philosophy, and that has been brutal. So there's really no other option for those people.
Yeah, I mean, you got a good example. You got a PhD in philosophy. What else are you going to do?
No, I mean, yeah, he has struggled, and he is obviously someone who has mentored me or given me thoughts on these options. Now, for people who don't want to go into finance professionally, but simply want to focus on personal finance, this is where I've read as well, in Rich Dad Poor Dad, for example, or Investing in One Lesson by Mark Skousen. I assume you have concerns with these books for popular consumption, or are they ones that you want to, do you want to comment on their quality, and then maybe recommend some?
Well, some of them are really good. I think some of them, I'm not as excited about that. The problem is what sells a book is not necessarily accuracy, but it is something that catches people's attention. And many people, their purpose in writing the book is not to educate, it is to make money. And so if you can make a more spectacular book, whether it be in fiction or whether it be talking about politics or whether it be personal finance, anything that sounds more spectacular, then it's going to probably sell better. And so my thought is that like anything, there are some good things out there. There are some not so good things there. The old time classic that is still excellent, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, certainly withstood the test of time. There are books out there that I don't have prepared in front of me names and authors to be able to recommend, but I think that there are certainly good ones out there that take the approach of, we do not have something we can recommend to you that will turn you into a millionaire overnight. Anything that says that will do that, so by the way, stay away from it. Okay. But if you just invest, consistently and, by paying yourself first, and you get started at a young age and you continue to do it, and you invest through a diversified portfolio. Generally, the best thing for the long run is common stocks, in my opinion. You'll be successful in terms of your investment. But the problem is when you decide that you want to get a little bit greedy and you say, "Oh man, I'm going to put 50% of my retirement money into Bitcoin," or something like that, and you say, I'm tired of earning 8 or 9% every year. I want to get a 50% return. Well, that's
or
when you run into problems.
700% in the case of Bitcoin, which is really out of control. But that was the return last year.
Well, that's wonderful. Anything that goes up 700% in 1 year can also go down 100% the next year. And and by the way, I recognize I wish I had put all my retirement money in Bitcoin last year, but I can tell you some sort of an investment every year for the last 30 years that now I wish I had put my money into. But hey, unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball, and none of us do.
No, I don't either, and I don't recommend people put money in Bitcoin as a straight investment. It does not pay a dividend, it's just you're holding on to a token which may or may not go up, and it went down by about 30 or 40% just recently. So that just shows you the enormous volatility of that option. Now, how should people follow your work? Or, aside from taking classes at Tulane University, which I recommend, and I've taken classes there.
Thank you.
But is there any other way people can learn from you?
No, that's really it. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't I don't put anything on out there, and I mean, Tulane pays me to teach courses, and that's really going to be the best way. If somebody's really interested, they're certainly welcome to take a look at a website that I have, similar to the website that I had for the course that you did. And this is a course that I use for my full-time MBAs. It's basic finance, and I'll give you the website address for it here. It is Reese. That's BREESE FINE 6020.tulane.edu. And that's a website for my core finance course that I teach to my full-time MBA students. It's got class notes on it, things like that, anyone would like to look at it can certainly feel free to do so. And again, a little bit of self-education with it, particularly if you read the textbook that is mentioned there along with it at the same time.
Right, Bill. Thanks so much for your time. And I just want to acknowledge that Olivia De La Pena has prepared new intro and outro music for the podcast. So I'm excited to share that with everybody. Bill, we'll be in touch.
Wonderful.
Cheers.
Okay.